Or will he turn to the camera, as Rahm Emanuel suggested earlier? Or, as Dan Abrams said, will he take an opportunity at some point in the debate to go after President Trump on the bank account in China about taxes? The other thing I'm looking for is which of the candidates best remembers how turned off the American people were by the first debate, the chaos, the interruptions, and remembers that for most people at home, it's how do we get through this pandemic, how do we recover this economy, and how do we do that without a significant loss of life as we move forward?
Lindsay Davis?
Yeah, similar to David, does he respond with the Michelle Obama mantra of when they go low, we go high? Additionally, of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Tens of millions of Americans have pre-existing conditions. The president has been promising his health care plan for years. Will we hear anything about it at all tonight?
Rahm Emanuel?
Duerstream bullshit again.
If I was Joe Biden, I'd make sure this campaign is one of compassion and cohesion versus continued conflict and chaos. And if you can keep it in that frame, which is therefore a referendum on Donald Trump, and you're the answer and the antidote to a more calmer future, that's where you want this.
So you expect him to be talking a lot more to the audience than to Donald Trump?
Totally about them, their future, act and to just deflect Donald Trump. It's your children, your families, your future. That's what we're here to debate, not us.
Chris Christie, I hear that the White House aides have been showing President Trump videotapes of the last debate 4 years ago where they thought he did pretty well by at some point taking a lighter touch.
Yeah, that was debate number 3 that we were showing in Georgia, and I would tell you that what I'm looking for tonight are 2 things. One, the president's demeanor. How does he come across, and does he understand that tonight could be a night to attempt to charm some of the American people by talking to them about what his vision is for the next 4 years? If he doesn't do that, then I think we're going to see another brawl like we saw a few weeks back.
And Yvette Simpson, that brawl did not help President Trump last time around.
Right. What I would say about Joe Biden, just to bring it home, is hopefully he took notes from Kamala Harris's handling of Pence. Be clear, be concise, shake your head and say, bless your heart, and keep it moving, because the reality is the guy on the other side of the stage is not in a position of winning. So ignore him, talk to the American people, be empathetic, and mostly be clear and be strong. That's what people want to see right now.
Ignore your interlocutor, okay?
I want to see if Donald Trump can put Joe Biden on his heels about what is really the leftward lurch of the Democratic Party. Can he convince enough independents and soft Republicans that the choice is stark, get them to vote for him, and close this race? That's what I want to see.
Is that at odds with going after Hunter Biden?
It depends how he does it. Look, I think this is becoming a very legitimate issue, and there's been enough evidence that at least it deserves more debate. He can do that in a respectful way. If he interrupts, if he attacks, if he makes personal attacks on Hunter Biden's challenges with addiction, I think that's too low, and that will turn too many people off.
Dude, Republicans are such
pussies, what are you looking for?
Looking to see if the president can listen to his campaign aides who want him to just let Biden talk, in the hopes that Biden will perhaps dig his own ditch on that stage on some of these issues that they've been challenging him. And also, can the president articulate his vision clearly for a second term, because he has repeatedly so far failed to do that, George?
Martha Raddatz, you've been up as a moderator on a debate stage, on the national stage, in a general presidential election. We've seen, we talked about earlier in this program how President Trump has been going after Kristen Welker. You've been on the receiving end of that as well. What do you expect tonight?
I certainly have been on the receiving end of that. I think Kristen Welker can take whatever comes at her. But I think the real thing to remember is Donald Trump thought he did a fabulous job in that train wreck of a debate. So it doesn't matter what aides say. It doesn't matter what all of us say. We'll see if he really believes that, or he changes it up.
All of this is, to what degree do you think Trump sucks? A bag of dicks.
I'm really looking at Donald Trump in this because Joe Biden just has to stay steady and keep doing what he's doing. The question for me is, can Donald Trump be something different than he's been for 5 years? Can he get out of the bubble of everybody telling him the same thing over and over? And can he understand there's a whole group of voters out there that don't agree with him a lot and don't like him? And can he appeal to them in a fundamentally different way than he's done for 5 years? Because that's what he has to do.
That is a big question. Terry Moran, you get the last word.
And just to follow up on that, bring us together. That's what voters wanted in 1968, another tumultuous year. That was Richard Nixon's sense of the electorate. Does Donald Trump sense that people are tired, exhausted of the fighting and the hatred? Can he do it?
The debate is coming right up. We'll be right back.
Hell yeah, dude. Coming right up. Sit pretty. It's going to be laden with pyrotechnics. Let's mute that bad boy, or at least put it way down.
This is an ABC News special.
Advertisements, baby, now.
Record-shattering voter turnout.
A vote for Republicans is a vote for safe communities, great jobs, and a limitless future for all Americans.
We choose
It tends
hope
to
over
be.
fear. We choose unity over division, science over fiction, and yes, we
And meanwhile,
choose
men can be
truth
women and
over
women can be men, and
lies.
8-year-olds can
Stand up and
transition
take back our democracy.
their gender.
The final presidential debate starts right now, live from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, and ABC News election headquarters. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
And welcome back to our special coverage of tonight's final presidential debate, just moments away now. And that is the scene at Belmont University in Nashville, where President Trump and Vice President Biden will take the stage for 90 minutes and take questions from moderator Kristen Welker of NBC News. Just 12 days to go in this election. Almost 50 million Americans have already voted, a sign of the times in a presidential
I'm
race
voting
transformed
IRL,
by
man.
the
Fuck
pandemic
that.
and a sign of how engaged Americans are in this race. Also a warning sign for President Trump. He's behind in the national polls right now and the key battleground states. The pool of undecided voters
whatever,
is
he's
shrinking by
behind
the
in,
day.
like,
He's got to
ABC
do
polls
something
or some
tonight
shit, right?
to shake up this race. Our chief White House correspondent John Karl is on the scene in Nashville.
Yeah, they've been saying he needs to shake it up.
And George, when the president is behind,
Shake
he
it up,
goes
shake it up,
on the
shake it up.
attack. I expect that is what will happen here. I think he will go after Joe Biden in very personal ways, going after his family, going after his son Hunter Biden's business dealings, regardless of
Well,
whether or
they're
not
all
there are any
scuzbags, of
questions
course. He
that
should.
lead him in that direction. I think he will do that. Now, George, the president complains bitterly about the fact that the microphone will be muted for some of the answers, for some of this. But his advisors actually think that that will be good for the
let's keep
president.
track
What
of
they really want to come
how
out of
biased
this
the
debate
muting of the mic
is for
is.
Joe Biden to make a mistake. And they believe that that is more likely to happen if the president isn't constantly interrupting it.
Right. They want to let Joe Biden talk and see what happens if that happens. Mary Bruce, what is the Biden team prepared for?
Well, Joe Biden's goal here tonight really is just to stay the course. He needs to avoid any big missteps. He needs to avoid giving the president any big openings here. He knows that Donald Trump is going to come after him with personal attacks against him and his family. They're braced for the fact that this debate could get ugly. And Joe Biden is going to push back against
Using
personal
words
attacks,
like
but he really
ugly.
doesn't want to get into the
Personal
mud
attacks,
with the president.
ugly.
That is easier said than done. But instead,
Interrupting.
Joe Biden's goal here is really to stay laser focused on the president's handling of this pandemic and to try and talk just directly
He
to
hasn't
the
handled the
American
pandemic
people. So when
right.
Trump
So
comes
fucking
after him,
biased.
Biden is going to argue this isn't about his family, this is about your family and what voters are looking for in their next president.
But Mary, Biden has admitted he lost his temper a little more than he wanted to at the last debate.
And George, I have to tell you, I have talked to Biden supporters who are not happy with the tone that they heard from the former vice president. He was very blunt, often very harsh. At one point, he even told the president of the United States to shut up. I think it will be interesting tonight to see whether he softens his tone at all against the president.
Okay, the debate is about to begin. As we said, the moderator, Kristen Welker of NBC News. 6 big topics on the agenda tonight: fighting COVID, race, national security, climate change, and presidential leadership. Let's go to Kristen Welker.
Fuck, man. So give Blake's money, whine about 9 people croaking from Chinese
Good
Wuhan
evening
bat
from
flu,
Belmont
and
University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News,
go.
and I welcome you to the final 2020
Welcome to your corporate
presidential
cocksuck
debate
brain
between
drain,
President
2020.
Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump.
Woohoo! Oh boy. Oh yeah, that does a hell of a lot of good, man.
And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone.
And the cloth-faced diapers have been terrific in preventing the spread.
We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital, I had it, and I got better, and I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure, but I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight.
Alpha!
And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead.
No.
If you hear nothing else I say tonight,
with 9,000, dude.
Hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America.
Oh, go fuck yourself.
We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day.
Okay.
And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year.
They said what?
If we just wore
Millions
these
before?
masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure,
especially one branded
of
with
rapid testing, investing
people
in
that donate to my
testing.
campaign.
I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you because this is new information. You have said a vaccine is coming soon within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, And he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
We're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January.
They called him racist.
He was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, "Oh, I should have, moved quicker." But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families, every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals, and now I recovered. 99.9 of young people recover. 99% of people recover.
Right.
We have to recover. We can't
We have to
close
go on
up
with
our
our frickin'
nation.
lives,
we have to
man. We gotta
open our
reopen
school,
America,
and
make
we
it great
can't close
again.
up our nation, or you're not
Seriously.
going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You have
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are
Poor
learning
people
to
can
die with
succeed
it.
just like
you
the
folks
white
home will
kids.
have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live
That
with
was
it.
sloppy.
Come on.
That
We're
was sloppy
dying
and
with it
senile and
because
stupid.
he's never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
We need another 1,200.
Fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding
Are
when he
there
said that. A lot of people
naggers
thought
in
it was
the movie?
serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
No,
President Trump.
we didn't even lose 200,000
Perhaps just
people.
to finish this.
That's a lie.
I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing, you're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even, and because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
Phobe
said
isn't
phobe.
I
That's
talked
all they
about
got.
xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling.
He thought I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
that's obvious.
Is that? Do you want to respond to
Yeah,
that
they call it
quickly, Vice President
xenophobic.
Biden? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your
Yeah, they got
different
nothing.
strategies
Wrecked.
toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse
suicide.
outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned.
No, it was
Those other
governors and
concerns
mayors
are real.
playing
That's
politics,
why
just like
he
BLM
should have been,
bullshit.
instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Oh, well, no, I'm not
They're gonna
shutting
shut
down the net,
shit
but
down and
there
make
are-
people wear
look,
masks. That's what they asked
need
you,
standards.
fucking
The
dolt.
standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. More social distancing. Do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
Please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people. I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the
to
teachers
live
is
streams
very
of the
small.
people teaching.
But I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often, the cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down, he'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Simply not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can
every
take
business gets
testing
that
rapidly
magically?
and know whether a person is in fact
This is
infected.
so stupid. I don't want to live like
You need to be able to
that.
trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive. And it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States.
Dude,
and look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you say spike, take a look at what's happening in
Pennsylvania,
where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed, and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony. But he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says
COVID,
that,
Trump's response
Anthony
to COVID,
Fauci
that's
said,
all they're going to
and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from.
Just want to lock up society, fucking turn it into a prison,
but Anthony
and make
said,
everybody
don't
compliant.
wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words, this is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to
he was also told that it was like
colleagues,
spread on picnic tables,
recorded
though, I think.
that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it. You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able to.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Average contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is
So
national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election. I won't even get into the last one. This election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true.
Derived
and then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question. Why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part, as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia. And it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, who was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million. And, you know, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get $3.5? I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that. And through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said, the one thing that's common to both of them They both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and
Trump's
Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family.
Russia. He'll play it right back at him.
What he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond. 30 seconds. And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding?
So they got tax returns and Russia.
Countries are paying you a lot.
And wear your cloth mask to stop a virus.
China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country. All around the world. And China's building a new road to a new golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody told you that. Excuse me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia.
You do.
You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions about all of this, but I'm going to let you both respond
Trump's
very
terrific.
quickly.
Biden's
you just said you
terrible.
spoke to your accountant about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you have a deadline for when you're going to release them?
I get treated worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because I have a lot of people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars. And it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
This is less of a joke, but it's
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us.
Whatever,
Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to reduce your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on.
Do you know what a fucking write-off is, you idiot?
President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you on this.
Come on.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place.
This is what they got.
Spent $48 million.
This is what they got.
They went through everything I had, including my tax returns,
insane,
and they
dude.
found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Jill, I could find plenty wrong, because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars.
Him.
Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it.
Every time he brings up the fucking
well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing. Number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do, because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had, the only guy who made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
But could I just one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the vice president respond to that quickly.
Very low
and then I
energy.
get to a question to you. Very
No
low
basis
energy.
for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is, everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe.
The first one was
and then I decided,
like
because I was going to I was thinking about doing a deal in China, like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every place.
Interrupt them quick, cut them off.
I do want to ask you,
every time,
Vice
dude.
President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done.
China.
He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down. with China. Up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it. And that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay, very quickly.
With $1.5 billion from China to manage after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what specifically are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going to make them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come
the taxpayers. It's called China. China paid $28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
Our response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires for the ball because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont.
Skip college.
They're in trouble.
Start a business.
We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want to talk about North Korea. I do want to turn to 10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10 seconds.
A typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about North Korea.
Cheesy 80s, 90s political slogan.
Let's get off the subject of China. Let's talk around sitting around the table. Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test, and yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, who sat in the White House, right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people, and so millions of people would be dead right now.
President Trump, that's 30 seconds. Thank you. Vice President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat?
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be a nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American families.
They tried to meet with him.
10 seconds, President.
They tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I got to give him a chance to respond to that before we move on.
Yeah, you got to give him a chance, but not Trump, huh?
We're not in a war.
What the fuck's that?
We have a good relationship. You know, people
this is so obvious.
Having a good relationship with leaders of other countries is a good thing.
We have a lot of questions to get to.
Your
response.
Saying we had a good relationship
pointing out
with
the bias.
Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe. The rest of Europe. Come on.
Hitler,
The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
and it didn't happen.
Let's move on and talk about American families.
He left me a mess, Kristen.
President Trump, okay, we do need to move on.
They left me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
And
in fact, if you remember the first 2 or 3 months, there was a very dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote of the new Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure.
MAGA
We
care.
might even have
Hell
the House
yeah.
by that time. And I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income
Yeah, sign off in the chat if you
been
think we need to repeal the 19th Amendment and make America great again.
180 million plans, 180
I second that
million
notion.
people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden,
Cut his
this
mic.
is for you. Your health care
Catch
plan
that?
calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that
Oh, your
if
taxes
you,
are gonna
in
get
fact, do not
jacked.
have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly,
that was all
the idea
just
that I want to eliminate private
buzz
insurance.
phrases,
The reason why
meaningless
I had
nonsense.
such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't. Not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None. Zero. You can't do it in the ether.
I really hope that
He's been talking
Americans
about
watch
this for a long time. There is no, he's never come up
and
with a
realize
plan.
that
I guess
Sleepy
we're going to
Joe
get the pre-existing conditions
needs to
plan
go.
the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice
They're
President.
gonna get over the
It relates to
sniffles in like
something
2
that
seconds.
President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's your response
It's
to them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think healthcare is
That's their
not
favorite
a
word.
privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President Trump,
Excuse me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and
He's
it's
laughing
not like
'cause
it
it's
was
all
25
novel
years
to
ago.
him.
It was
It's all just a
3
joke.
3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking. And you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way,
but somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
he goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking.
we have a number of topics.
Cutting him off. Somebody should go through and
We're
just
gonna
clip
get
it
to
all
it. We're
together
gonna get
every
to
time
it.
they interrupt Trump.
I have to respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening
public
on Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's let Vice President Biden respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your
confused
response.
guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them.
Your
Joe
party
Biden
is
he's
them,
running against.
though,
And the
effectively.
idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023. With no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get rid of, he
Mr.
tried to
President,
hurt
and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right, let's move on.
Again! Cutting him off
Let's
again!
move on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
gonna
will
have time
boom
to talk about it.
if I'm
The
elected.
sound of a
If
woman
he's
cutting a
elected,
man
the
off
stock
is
market will
so
crash.
fucking
Okay, let's
irritating.
move on to the next
It's-
question.
Oh, God.
Very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure.
And let
of
Joe
what's
Biden
happening.
fucking get the last
Where I
word?
come from in Scranton and Claremont,
Is
the
anyone
people
else
don't
noticing
live off of the
this?
stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis,
absurd, man.
the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more. $700 billion more, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to move on.
401ks are through the roof.
We're going to move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All right.
And he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew it.
We're going to move on
and
to
he
the
left.
next question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next
We're
question.
going to interrupt Trump,
As of
and we're going to
tonight,
allow
more than
Biden
12
to prattle
million people
on.
are out of work, and as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of
shitlibs.
color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill.
Liberals
Mr.
did
President,
all
why
of
haven't
this.
you been able to get
They
them
shut
the help
everything
they
down
need?
and forced
30
everyone to wear
seconds here.
masks.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President.
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because let
Republicans
me
will
ask
pass it.
Vice
We
President
should have been
Biden
getting
a question.
1,200
You are the
every
leader
month
of the
this
Democratic
entire
Party.
time.
Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have.
There you
They
go.
have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running.
We never should have
He
shut
will
down,
not
but
support
since
that. They
did it
done
anyway,
a thing for them.
to
And Mitch
mitigate that, we
McConnell
should have
said,
gotten
"Let 'em go
1,200
bankrupt.
every month."
Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
The bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
If I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether
Blue
they're red
cities,
or
way
blue.
more.
Cops,
Way
firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses.
Prepare
1 in 6 of
for
them going under.
living in
They're
big
not going to
cities
be
to
able
just
to
be
make it back.
completely
They passed
unsustainable.
a package that
Every big
allows
city is
us
going to be
to
like
able
San
to call
Francisco
PPP.
within 10 to 20
Money's supposed to go to help them
years.
do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely, schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly,
want
he
to
said
get
we
your
have to help
reaction.
our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York.
Yeah, there
New
you go.
York is different from Vermont.
That's sensible.
Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
we have
recently.
to help. It's
Interrupt
very
him
important.
again.
We have to help our small businesses. How are you
What
helping
the
your small
fuck?
businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really like,
administration?
in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick response, Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders will all clap
$6
for
an hour
as they come down the street.
I don't think
because
so,
they've allowed
dude.
us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty
He's
level.
clap
And there is
talking.
no
What
evidence
the
that when you
fuck,
raise the
man?
minimum wage, businesses go out of
We
business.
got like black
That is
fist
simply
raising
not
and
true.
We're going
clap
to talk about
talking. But
immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen.
Shit-libs.
And we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border. At least 4,000 kids.
Kids in
You've
cages.
since reversed your zero-tolerance policy. But the
Separate
United
kids
States
from
can't
cages.
locate
They're child
the parents of more
traffickers
than 500
buying
children.
kids.
So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over
They were whipping
400
rocks at
miles of
Border
brand
Patrol,
new
too.
wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in
See,
through.
this is why women should not be.
Let me just tell you.
Kids with their families.
Let me just tell you.
Mr.
I built cages. You know, they used to say, I
Aren't
built
you
the
so
cages.
glad that
and
women
then they had a
vote?
picture in a certain
Aren't you so
newspaper.
glad?
And it was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525.
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids
Stupid
came
leading
with
question.
parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They
Shame on you!
Parents.
How dare you!
And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Skull,
moral skull.
They did it.
I hate liberals.
We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
They did it. We changed.
Did not
they built the cages. Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who built the cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped. Their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone.
They're coyotes.
Nowhere
Who
to
gives a
go.
fuck, man.
Nowhere to go.
You're using
It's
kids
criminal.
as shields, just like
It's
you did with
criminal.
mothers during the
ask you
I
riot.
will say this. They went
10
down. We
seconds, and
brought
then I need to
reporters,
ask.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some of
and
them
have gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question.
More
Who built the
interrupting.
cages?
What an
I'd love you to
obnoxious
ask him
woman.
that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama
Changing the
administration did
subject.
fail to deliver
Interrupting.
immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course.
Obama?
So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And
how
all
delightful.
those so-called
He'll
dreamers,
expedite your
those
replacement.
DACA kids, they're going to be
Oh, wow.
immediately
How
certified
great.
again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that
Put on a path
they
to an
are being
HR
sent
position
home by
where they're
this
gonna
guy
scold
and they
you for
wanna do that
racism and
is
fire
they
you
go to a
and-
country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old.
Well
your
on a
parents
path
are
to an
taking you
affirmative
across
action,
the Rio
obtain
Grande
job
River,
above you.
and it's illegal. And you say, "Oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you." They've
Robots
been
and
here. Many of them
immigrants
are
and
model
DACA
citizens.
recipients
Over
will be replacing
20,000
all of
were
us
first responders
within 2
out there
decades.
taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
We owe them.
President,
He puts
years
foreigners
to do
over
what he said he was going
Americans.
to do. And I've changed without
straight
having a specific. We got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a
Kids in
family
cages,
came across and they were
Trump's
arrested,
tax returns.
they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing.
Who the
They were
fuck is
released. And guess
persuaded by
what? They
this?
showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster.
Let them all
A
in and let them
murderer
commit
would come
crimes.
in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in
Dems
2
are always
years,
soft on crime.
3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe.
Yeah.
They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But they're
President Trump,
very,
let's
very-
give Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on
He
to
gets
the
too
next
based
section.
and they cut him off.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law. What he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about it.
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's talk about our next section, which is race in
Wah.
America.
Oh,
and I want
boy.
to talk about the way black and brown Americans experience race in this country.
Gross.
Part
Who
of that
cares?
experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have
See,
no
Tyrone,
choice
you actually have
but
to follow
prepare
the
their
law.
children for the chance that they could
You
be
have to-
targeted, including by the
you
police,
have to respect
for
police
no
officers.
reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice
Bullshit.
President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do.
Bullshit.
I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's
parasite?
written
Oh.
a lot about this. She's
Oh.
has her graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social.
Oh, an economic parasite.
And
Oh,
you
okay.
know,
wow. Okay, cool.
one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American.
Oh, that
was to
jungle?
learn more
Racial
about
jungle,
what was
dude?
going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black
You
parent,
should!
no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street,
Progressives
don't
are
have a hoodie on when you go
insane.
across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel.
Oh my God,
Because
asking
you
them to say
are, in
yes, sir,
fact,
and
the
no,
victim,
sir.
Whether you're a person
Whoa.
making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America. And
Because
we
they have to say
always
yes,
said,
sir, and no,
we've
sir?
never lived up to it. That we hold these truths to be
White people
self-evident.
do that
All
by
men
default.
and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come
sucks.
along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access
said
to
that already.
opportunity to borrow money to start businesses.
You said
All
that
the
already.
things
We already
can
have
do, and
that.
I've laid out a clear plan as
We already
to how
have
to
minority
do those
business
things.
loans.
Just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to
Let me
these
remind you
families.
of the
Do you
leading
understand
bias question.
why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And
Oh,
again,
cock.
he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did
crime
such
bill.
harm to the
Okay.
black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that.
Based
He said it,
Biden?
super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for
Dems
the
are the
black
real racists?
community
Okay.
than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception,
It's true. He's
of
an NAACP
Abraham Lincoln,
reward.
possible exception,
Cuck.
but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform, Obama
He's
and
let a bunch of murderers
Joe
out.
didn't do
Cool.
it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for
More prison
opportunity
reform,
zones.
so just
It's one
let
of the most
murderers and
successful
rapists and robbers
programs.
out
People don't talk about
on
it.
parole,
Tremendous
basically.
investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of
keep
coming to
cucking
the
GOP.
office, I love some
See
of
where it
those
gets
guys. They
ya.
were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and
Cut it
universities.
off.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice
My
President.
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying.
Oh, really?
The fact of the
Bummer.
matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here
you're all
where
soft on crime cocks.
The federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there
always
should
racism,
be
even when you're letting thousands of criminals out.
That's
still like just white supremacy trying to hide, according to the left.
States to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail.
They're not.
Fundamentally
they're going to jail because they're selling fentanyl to fucking high school kids.
Why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years
fucking
ago?
Hate progressives. All they do is lie.
You keep talking about all these things you're going to do, and you're going to do this. But
he's defending Central Park 5.
And you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character.
He's getting interrupted.
You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond.
Constant appealing to the camera. I hate that.
Ukraine,
That makes me
China,
cringe
other
so hard.
countries, Iraq. If this is true, then he's a corrupt politician. So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby.
All right, I have to cut you off.
They're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
there are 50 former national
respond.
intelligence folks.
So I can interrupt
who
Trump
said that
again.
What he's accusing me of is a
this
Russian
sucks,
plan.
dude.
They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia.
Gentlemen, I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of
I
race.
hope that I'm not
Mr.
the only one who
President,
points
you've
out the interruptions and the
described
bias
Black Lives
here.
Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of
True.
a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of
That was
language
so
from a president
biased.
is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket.
And they've been terrorizing
fry 'em
Americans
like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know. I don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity
He should say that they're
zones. I took care of
terrorists because
black
they've been terrorizing
colleges and
people.
universities.
Black unemployment rate.
They
So he's
can
going to
say
cock
anything.
more.
I
And
mean,
it's not
they
going
can
to work.
say anything. It makes me sad.
Okay.
Because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
DR3,
Okay,
Dems
Vice
are the
President
real
Biden, let me
racists.
ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single.
You just call him
fascist
Abraham
fire. Lincoln? Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists.
No, he
He's banned
didn't.
Muslims
Stop
because they're
fucking
Muslims.
lying.
He has moved around and made
If only he said
everything
that.
worse across the board. He says about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy
The
is a
poor
dog
boys?
whistle about as big as a foghorn.
Oh, he means the Proud
President
Boys.
Trump, I'm
What
gonna
a
give you
fucking
10 seconds to
dolt.
respond, and
Shut
then
up, Biden.
You made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
you said
He's a senile old
where did
man.
that- No. I said not
There's
since
a-
Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm saying-
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of
God,
black
which was
men
good.
mostly
Based Biden.
in jail.
All right, let me
And you know
let me
what?
let me
They
ask
Based
Vice
Biden?
President
You look at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now.
Let me ask
They
Vice
remember
President
that you
Biden
treated them
about-
very, very badly.
No,
Just
they
take a
don't.
look at what's
They just want
happening out
gibbs.
there.
Vice President Biden, let me give
And
you a
they want
chance to respond
clearance to
within this
riot.
context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are
What
brothers,
else?
they're fathers, they're uncles.
Assault
whose families are
charges,
still to this day,
probation,
some
like,
of them
what
suffering
else?
the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment.
They hardly
across the
do
board.
at this point,
That's what we should
especially
be
for
spending
mo
money. That's
weed.
why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail.
You have a
for
Nick sack,
drug
you
or
get
an
sent to a
alcohol
fucking
problem.
program.
They should be going into treatment.
You already are.
That's what we've been trying to do.
All
That's what I'm going to
progressives
get
do
done,
is
because
lie
I make
all the
American
time
people
without
have
exception.
Now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug, but they were not in the crime bill.
But why didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to
So
do.
GOP
when I
are the
become
real
president.
progressives.
You were vice president
Great.
along with Obama
This
as
is
your
so
president. your
blackpilling,
leader,
dude.
For 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a lot of it done. We released 38,000. We got 38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. We have.
That's not
there
good.
were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I just asked one question. Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just
This
said,
is not
I'm going to do
winning,
that.
dude.
I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison.
Dems
Now
are
you're
the
saying
real
you're gonna
racists.
you're gonna
More of this
undo
crap,
that.
dude.
Why
We're
didn't you get it
losing.
done? You had 8 years with Obama.
Republicans give
You know why,
more
Joe?
money
Because
to
you're all
Blakes.
talk and no action.
All right, Vice President Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe. So
All
you gotta talk 'em into it.
right, we're going to move on to our next section.
You gotta sell it, Joe.
Criminal
Believe.
justice reform. I had to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time, so we got to get on to climate change, please. You
Oh, who
both
gives
have
a
very
fuck?
different visions on climate change.
I'm just-
President Trump,
oh
you
my
say that
God.
environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector.
Just
Vice
walk,
President
take the
Biden,
bus.
you have said
Don't
you see
throw
addressing
trash
climate
everywhere.
change
Who gives
as
a
an
fuck,
opportunity to
man?
create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different
Trillion,
programs.
million,
I do
billion
love the
trees.
environment, but what
Terrific
I want is the
trees.
cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden,
The
2 minutes to
environment.
you.
I mean, I don't give a shit about the environment
Climate
issues.
change and climate warming,
Personally.
the global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years.
Catastrophic,
4 more years
fear-mongering
of this man
bullshit.
eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit the limit of emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new, good-paying jobs. We're going to invest
You're going
in,
to steal
for
money
example,
from the productive to give to
500,000
hippies.
50,000
to run
charging
nonprofits that will
stations
waste money.
on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health
going to destroy
and our
industry,
jobs are
dude.
at stake. That's
what
what's
they want to
happening.
do.
And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
Today came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it?
Interrupting.
AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC plus 3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says
That's
buildings,
going to even more
they want
debt.
to take buildings down because they
Yep.
want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President
It
respond,
is
and we're running out of
crazy.
time, and we have a lot
And
more
you'll
questions to
destroy
get
our
to.
country.
So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more questions.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers. $100 trillion.
It's been like 9 times they've both interrupted him.
This is plans endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing job.
I'm sure he said that.
And they pay good prevailing wages, $45, $50 an hour.
All they fucking do is lie.
Grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump, please respond.
We are energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive. Kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our
Neither one of these guys know what they're talking about,
we need
and
to compete
I don't
with
care
the
about
world.
fucking global warming.
False.
This isn't 1996, dude.
But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy,
This debate has been useless. They interrupted the president 8 times. They've covered nothing useful. All platitudes.
I have never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025.
Wow.
What I will do with
Zero
fracking over
emissions,
time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the
Ridiculous,
fracking,
dude.
capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money and doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in
That
this
was
time.
just gibberish.
He was against fracking. He said it. I will
Interrupt
show
the
that to
president
you
so
tomorrow.
Biden can
I
jibber
am
jabber
against
on
fracking.
more.
Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania. Then he said, "But you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it."
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking or oil on federal
Let
land.
me ask this final question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on
Thought we
these
were whining
kinds
about
of
the factories
facilities.
being
Why
shipped
should these
away.
families give
Now
you
we're
another 4 years in
angry
office?
about factories
the
being
families
there.
that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of
just
money, more money than
shut the
they've
fuck
ever
up.
made.
If you're progressive,
look
just
at
shut the
kind
fuck
of
up.
numbers that we've
If you're
produced
progressive
for
that stumbles
Hispanic,
across the stream,
for Black,
you are a
for
terrible
Asian,
fucking person
it's
who
9
stands for
times greater the
lies,
percentage gain was
sadism,
under, in 3
destruction,
years, than
death,
was under
and
4
gaslighting.
years of the two
Just
of them.
fuck you.
To put it nicely, 9 times more. Now, somebody lives. I have not heard the numbers
I'm
or the
pissed, dude.
statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money.
Sound off in the chat if you
economically. We
see
saved it.
exactly
And
how
I saved
fucking
it again a
disingenuous
number
these
of months
fuckers
ago
are.
when oil was crashing
It's
because
terrible.
of the pandemic. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All
And
right.
everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants.
because it's a
that, in
term
fact,
that a sociology
pollute. Chemical
professor
plants
made
and
up
oil
last
plants
week.
And refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters.
So was it
how you
racist
keep
when
them
Polish
safe.
and German
What do you
families
do?
were subject
You impose
to
restrictions on the
factory
pollutions that are
toughness
coming out of those fence lines.
and grit and grime, or is it only only raised this because Blake's can't fucking hack it.
Would he close down the oil industry?
I hate lying progressives,
I would
dude.
transition from the oil industry, yes. I will transition.
All progressives do is lie, destroy, gaslight, and pander. That's all they fucking
the oil
do.
industry
They're disgusting creatures.
I said, here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. You won't give federal subsidies to the gas. Excuse me, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business.
One final
That's the
leading
biggest statement.
biased question.
Because basically what he said
Or I'll
is
interrupt
he's
the
going to
president.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context, but the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production. By 2050, totally.
All right. One
Is he
final
going to get
question
China to
both
do
of you.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question.
No,
We have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin
question.
Paris Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right, this is about leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, etc. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country.
There it is.
Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what?
Yeah,
the
no mention
other
of white.
side
Okay.
wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural
Boomer
address
Republicans
to
are just going to
Americans who
continue
did
to
not
pander to
vote?
minorities that
I will say,
hate them.
I'm
We're
an American
doomed.
president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear.
But men are
We're
women
gonna
and women are
choose
men.
to move
Okay.
forward because we have enormous opportunities. Enormous
The
opportunities.
BLM
to
protests
make
don't
things
spread the
better.
virus, but
we can grow this economy. We can deal
Cookout
with the
does,
systemic
or
racism.
Thanksgiving does.
And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country. Decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump,
Fantastic
former Vice President
interruptions
Joe Biden,
and bias.
thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone.
I'm voting
and
in
have a great
person,
night.
straight Republican for the first time in my
Second
life.
and
I'm looking
final
forward to
debate
it.
Of this 2020 election, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, two white
Second
men
and final,
in their 70s,
interruption
two
fest.
very different candidates. What we heard tonight over the course of the 90 minutes as we
And
see
here is
Donald Trump
Sonia
come on the
Blade
stage wearing
coming
her
on the
mask
stage.
tonight is two very different visions of how to handle the COVID crisis, how the COVID crisis was handled. For the first 40 minutes or so, it seemed like a relatively normal debate as the candidates laid out their positions on the COVID crisis. Got heated about 40 minutes in when Joe Biden unexpectedly went on offense over Donald Trump and his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. President Trump responding with a series of unverified and misleading and false charges about Joe Biden and his business dealings and the business business dealings
Right.
of his
Look at how
son,
biased this
and
is.
then some harsh clashes. We didn't have the kind of interruptions we saw in the first debate.
Yeah, you did. You had the moderator and Biden interrupting Trump.
To work at least 4
Stop lying.
but there were harsh clashes on health care, the minimum wage, children separated at the border under the Trump administration policy, and the big issue of character and race. Joe Biden memorably saying sarcastically, Abraham Lincoln talking about Donald Trump as one of the most racist presidents of modern times. The big question, John Carl, in the debate hall tonight for the president and his team, did they do enough to change the
So
dynamic
Trump was
of this
really,
race?
Biden was really awesome and called Trump a racist.
George, this was a
Wasn't that
much
great?
better debate, and kudos to Kristen Welker in the moderating here. And certainly the Trump camp Republicans generally, who I've heard from over the course of the debate, were relieved that Donald Trump was much more disciplined. He wasn't doing all the interruptions.
Yeah.
He actually had a theme at times. The theme
God,
that
this
Joe
is making me
Biden is a
cringe
politician. When Biden
nearly
would come
to
up with
death.
something, why didn't you do it when you were in power? 47 years, why didn't you do
Wow.
it? So much more disciplined, Donald Trump. But George, your question, did it do enough to change the race? I don't think so. And one factor here is that Joe Biden had, I believe, the best debate that he has had in 2020. Joe Biden went on the offense. Joe Biden had
Joe Biden's
Donald
awesome.
Trump
Trump a
on the
doo-doo head.
defensive
I can't.
repeatedly. Even when it got
I can't fucking handle this. That was just fucking just lying, just lies upon lies upon lies. Go downvote. Well, go upvote my stream, but go fucking downvote this stream. I certainly did. Yeah, like 10% downvote. Oh, anyway. Upvote the stream. Share it somewhere. Give my motherfucking Streamlabs or my what the fuck do you call it? Oh my god, I'm dying here. Give my donation links some love and sound off in the comments. I'll be in there discussing shit. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hells yeah.